I'm going to be talking on the topic effectively managing front and back ends of virtual communication. So this particular video and expert chat I had in mind to clarify a few things, like a lot of people are talking these days, COVID-19, and physical movement is kind of stagnated, and more people taking to Zoom and Facebook and Google Duo and whatnot. So I think, this is where it's become a very urgent thing to realize that there are a lot of complications and important things to look at when we think of virtual communication, because a lot of times I've seen posts on Facebook of educators who complain that they understood the need for online classes and digital trainings and moving to the digital platform, but at the same time there's a huge stress of not being sure if the systems are capable or the trainings are enough, or there is enough preparation at the back end and the front end to be able to execute effectively whatever is the need, whether it's in the education sector, whether it's in the training, recruitment, business, operations, whatever it is. So, Minakshi Srivastav asks a question. What exactly are the front end and back ends of virtual communication? A very good question, because this is what I was going to start with. That so when it comes to technology and we speak of the front end and the back end, let me start from there so that we can draw parallel comparisons and kind of take it from there. So when we speak of front end, we're talking of anything to do with the client, what the client's experiences or their customers experiences, or maybe anything to do with the design, the user interface, and all of that, what's visible at the front. Then when we speak of the back end, we speak about things that are at the server side. So let's say what was the coding that was done, what was constantly needed updating, changing things, structuring it, either writing it. So let's say there are some websites like the WordPress website or Wix, or there are some others that help you just they're all templates which are already available. All you have to do is just fill up details and the website is ready to go. But even then some back-end work is required. But then there are some websites which can be coded right from the scratch, so you have to take care of every little thing and every little change that. So if you don't like the physical look of it, if you don't like a website how it seems, the chances are that you would have to do a lot of changes at the back end, and it's a lot of hard work. So this so when I'm speaking of back end, there's structure involved, the content management involved, and all of that. So that's the server side of it. So when we speak of the front end and the back end of virtual communication, we are talking of a lot of things. We are speaking of, let's say, the front end of virtual communication would mean how to use that particular thing, and if the other people are able to understand how to use it, if you are using it, are they able to find some good value out of it, or how engaged they are and how involved they are, how what is the excitement and the experience after that particular session? Do they want to come back, or are they too exhausted and too fed up of all this experience that comes with it? It's also about the new things that they have learned, observed, or experienced. It's also about what are the different kinds of applications that you've identified and used, and therefore the experience undergoes a change for the other people. Now, when we speak of the back end involves, the structure or the template that you planned to execute this whole virtual communication of either interviewing someone, or, conducting a training, or, kind of having a team meeting and having all the things brainstorming going on, or whatever it is. Or it could be about, the different groups that you cater to. And it could be that, it's about recruitment, or it's about recruitment for specific roles and jobs. Then it also has to go undergo customization, and changes have to be made constantly. At times, what kind of technology you use has to be kind of, you have to know that supposing something goes wrong and in that particular training, or something finishes quickly and you still have time to do something, then what is the backup plan? What are the additional stored information or activities or things that you have or questions that you have that you would use in case things don't follow the plan that you had. Again, when we speak of things going wrong, because a lot of times people have their basic things ready when they speak of going online, and they may check their wi-fi, they may check their other things, but a lot of times it may happen that in spite of making sure and checking things have still not updated, things are still not up to the mark, as in something may go wrong last minute. So this is my understanding, and this is what I mean when I say the front end and the back end of virtual communication. Then we go on to a few things that I wanted to highlight, and then also go through questions which are coming up. So when we speak of virtual communication, two phrases according to me have become very important: need now, need and now. Why I'm saying that is because earlier virtual communication was something that people could look at saying that, oh wow, I think I can do this physical, why do I need to do digital? Or if it's like physically very far away from you and you are talking between different countries and cities, so you went for it. Now it's become the need, there is no other option. Social distancing has become like a urgent thing, and everybody is scared to even go out, even if there are some zones which have become relaxed. But even then there's a whole fear of people not wanting to go out, so it has become a need rather than a want right now. And it's become now because it's like you need it badly, and it's no longer the time when we can say, oh, I've just figured out I can use Zoom, or I can just figure out I've got Blue Jeans, or I've figured out I've got Cisco, or whatever, Google Duo or Skype or whatever. Now it's become like now, as in now, it's no longer about doing it for the sake of it, or you found somehow a recommendation from someone who said, oh, this is good, you can try this, or this has worked for me, this might work for you. It's no longer that time, because now if you know that it's a need and it's going to be like a need for some time, then you have to figure out how are you going to identify what is that particular resource, or what is that particular platform, or that particular methodology or system that works for you, because for you especially, and for the people you serve, be it one type or the various types of people that you serve. Now when we speak of challenges, I think here we can bring up this whole concept of, and the idea of the challenges which are involved when we speak of virtual communication. One thing is, everyone, be it the companies, individuals, everyone in every sector more or less was used to the physical side of things, which is why you could easily call up someone and say, hey, you know what, the company needs this particular thing done from you, you need to stay back and finish this, or come on a weekend and complete this. But no, it's no longer that. You can't bang on people and kind of depend on them to physically turn up for you. Now it's become more of you have to get it digital, you have to kind of bring it systems here into the digital world. So now it's like the whole problem that's going to happen, and that's happening now, is be it in the education sector, be it in the business sector, be it in any other social sector, or in the content field, people were used to maybe content not so much, because people could still send their articles or whatever their content was through Google Drive or whatever else through email. But even then I would say that majority systems depended largely on the physical setup. So now the whole challenge has become that everybody having that mindset of going physical and implementing physical and working things out physically. But now that whole mindset has to turn into imagining things, predicting and assuming, and a lot of case scenarios that have to be developed and discussed and brainstormed internally as a team, so that externally when people go and execute, it can be kind of analyzed better and executed better. Now here when I speak of front end and back end, let me give you an example. Let's say we are speaking of a company which is offering something to a group of people. Now here the front end part is that of course at the back end you've discussed, brainstormed, and figured out what is going to work best in terms of structure, in terms of delivery, in terms of the exact flow of things that are going to be there in that virtual communication. But the back end is taken care of at the same time when the thing is being executed at the front end, and when the customer or the client is experiencing something, it's important important to have your own team members at the back end observing silently, letting maybe the customer, the people know, or keeping a recording of it and going back and analyzing what worked, what didn't work, because it needs to be constantly understood, analyzed, and then, improvisations made or modifications made to the existing plan that you had while you executed it. So that's one way of looking at the front end and back end of the mindset part. Also, to figure out, the platforms. So now when we speak of the platform, first I spoke about the mindset and the shift that needs to happen. So that comes, also with, playing around with different platforms. So here, a lot of times I've heard people say that, this is so easy, it looks very easy, and I think I'll be able to pull it off very well. But let me tell you this, that, in spite of people telling you and you feeling that you'll be able to pull it off very well, it's very important that, which side of the game you are, whether you're the one who's interviewing or interviewed, whether you're the one who's the boss and the other people are the customers. Whatever be the case, it's very important for people to test out. Let me give you an example. So let's say those of us who assume we know Google, we know Microsoft, we know Word document, we know how to type things on our laptop. We didn't have that cloud concept where we kind of, had things stored online and we kind of went on that and did it. Though it's taking a transition there, but let me bring up this scenario to clarify things. So when we say that, I know that, we all will get on online and this particular timing, we're all going to be giving our inputs in one particular document, Google Docs, instead of the normal document that everybody was used to, and everybody did it individually and separately, and nobody had to collaborate, and now everybody comes together. It's very important to understand that when it's going to be Google Docs, there are going to be more complications. It's not difficult, but the complications will be this, that when you're typing, supposing for anything, you by mistake erase something, you'll have to be very cautious that, what is it that you missed, because then you'll have to undo those changes. If somebody deleted something by mistake and nobody was informed and nobody knew what has happened, things can be lost completely if changes were not made, or if there was a technology problem, or there was an internet connection problem, or something or the other. Also, so many times, we have these things where a template is given to everybody generally, and people have to make a copy and start using it or use it there itself. So very important thing is that you, at the back end, before you get into the physical experience, into the front end of things, it's important that at the back end you've downloaded a copy of that, or made a copy and, did some experimenting and playing around on that platform on another document similar. So that gives you, that more effectiveness, and also more confidence while you're dealing with it at the front end. So that's one of the things about platform. Also, as I said previously, when it comes to platforms, people are not sure, people have not tested or identified what platforms works for them and what doesn't. So it's no longer about, hey, what, Zoom worked for me, it's going to work for you, go for it, it's cheaper, it's so good, and it's so easy to operate. It's not going to work. You see somebody using a blue jeans and you say, hey, what, this, did you have to pay for this, is it so easy, can I also do it? It's not going to work. You have to realize what is it that you need, for how many people are you going to interact with, what is going to be the people's background, as in, are they tech savvy or not? If you are tech savvy, it's not enough, because the other person has to have an experience as well. You feeling good of having used a good technology, the other person not feeling that that technology was a great experience for them, then it's not going to work. What kind of educational backgrounds you work with, if you're working with people who are very, very tech savvy and they know technology really well, and we're talking of clients and customers also who are very tech savvy, then you go for higher, apps and higher, features, which kind of will click with them. They'll enjoy the extra that you give, and they'll come back to you because of the, new experience that you gave them, which other people who themselves were not maybe comfortable with technology could not give. Now when we speak about, as I said, it's more about the use and the need, rather than just, using it for the sake of it, or having no other alternative but going for this. Now, when the third thing that I'm going to speak about is the process. So now, when we speak of, the physical to digital mindset, and we speak of the platform being decided, one of the very important things is the process, the methodology, the delivery, the effectiveness of execution. That is so very important. And I'll tell you why, because a lot of times, I see these posts on Facebook, and I see this on social media, Zoom training conducted successfully. Oh, because 50, 60 people turned up and you used Zoom, you're an effective trainer. I'm sorry, you're totally wrong about that, because today it's become a need. So everybody has to do digital. There is no other option. And the fact that you've moved digital, congratulations, you've done that. But that is no proof that you are doing it effectively and it's going to work and it's working out both ways at the back end and the front end. Here, what I mean is when I say that processes and delivery and execution, and when I say front end and back end, let me explain. So when I say that, okay, I have to give a certain experience, I have to complete a certain recruitment, I have to complete a certain training, I have to complete a certain team activity and kind of a meeting that's going on that was usually happening at the physical end of the office. So here when we speak of the front end and back end, here what I mean is the back end means if I'm the boss or if I'm assigning this duty to somebody else. That's not a very good idea, by the way. People can be managing slides for you and changing slides for you, but it's really good if you kind of you know your own stuff as a team leader, as the boss, so that you know that in case something is going wrong, you don't need to depend on technology or somebody else to be able to tell you that, hey, you know what, this is not going wrong, you can do this now. That's not going to work, because sometimes, because of network issues, things may go wrong, things may pause for one person or the other, and therefore the one person who's speaking can completely freeze, or have to say sorry again and again and do something else to engage people. So if you know your stuff very well, if you know you're sharing your screen from your side, those are things better, because sometimes also when you as a boss are controlling the screen rather than letting a third party control, is this that supposing some people are not able to catch up, or if you see that it's getting very very complicated or intense and people are kind of taking a little like slow taking it slow, they're not engaged, then you can skip a slide and introduce a new activity and nobody will know. But the other person, it's not about feeling odd or feeling like awkward, that okay, I have to tell the person ahead in front of who's controlling the screen that okay, skip the slide. It's okay to say skip the slide. What I'm saying is it's going to be time consuming. So if you know your stuff from your side, and if you are sharing screen from your side and controlling things from your side, it's making things more and more quicker and smoother. Plus you can take u-turns as and when required. You can make modifications, skip points, add points as and when you require it, because you know your stuff. You don't depend on somebody else to do that for you. When I speak of, that's the back end side of things, that knowing exactly, figuring out the structure, the content, and the how things are going to be for different things and different people. And if supposing things go wrong, what will be your action plan, the plan B that you have, or the plan C that you have. And supposing as many people as you expected don't turn up or are not able to attend because of digital technical issues or something or the other, or not being able to interact effectively, people may stay quiet. So you have to know how to help them to be able to navigate all that. Or should you have some people in the back end already kind of getting those people on board and doing a testing with them, a demo with them, to show them how it's going to work. These are a few things you can take care of as a leader from the back end. When we speak of the front end, when we are coming live and we are talking and we are interacting and with a group of people, virtual communication is like, front end would include things like you giving the group of people a good experience. And one of the very important things I've realized in the last few days, when I've been comparing the use of Blue Jeans versus Zoom, and having used GoToMeetings and a lot of other things in the past, Hangouts and all of that, I think one of the very important things I've realized is that while you're sharing your screen, or while you are showing people something, it's very important to be able to see the faces of the people on the side. The reason I say this is because when you can see the faces and the expressions of people, here it includes encouraging them to open the video and to keep it on, to keep their mics running, and to make sure if there is anyone with a background noise, they need to put it off and only use it when it's required, or use the chat. If somebody is having a lot of network issues, they can use chat. But what I'm saying is you have to be very alert on various angles to ensure that the front end experience is a good one for people. So let's say if there are people who you're talking and you're talking a lot, there needs to be some activity at the same time that people need to be doing. After some point, they'll get very very bored and irritated. Or make it an interactive session where a good leader is one who knows that this is what I need to take out from the people, this is what my agenda for today is, and this is what I'm going to make sure that either I will speak or I'll make people speak. And the better leader is one where you know how to take it out of the people, instead of you giving all the wisdom and knowledge and insights. So ask good questions, put around an activity which kind of connects with people, and therefore they come up with good uh, output out of it. So when I'll give you an example, since I brought up Blue Jeans and I told about Zoom. The best thing is when you're doing screen share and when you're doing a lot of other things with Zoom, sharing the screen and showing the slideshow, or the whiteboard part of it, or chat. I think one of the things I really like about Zoom is the visibility of the people on the side, and to constantly being able to see if they are doing something, not doing something, all of that. Also, a lot of people today talking about the safety involved with Zoom. I think there are still many people using it. So one of the things I would encourage you to think about is, what is it that you're using for? If you're using it for a long term usage, what age group are you dealing with? How important is safety? What content are you giving out that needs to be safeguarded? So all of that. And of course, there's an option called lock meeting, enable waiting room. These are things you can make sure. Passwords, of course, have become compulsory. So these are things you can look at when you think of the back end with the Zoom part of it. And Blue Jeans, I think one of the things I really like about Blue Jeans when it comes to trainings and all is to put people into different rooms and to be like a leader who can pop in and check on people and then come out and again join another room. So that is like the flexibility which Blue Jeans has given, making smaller rooms and then ensuring that people can be categorized into groups, and then you can keep checking instead of letting people be, and then have, that's called a breakout session, by the way. So what I'm telling here is this, that when we speak of virtual communication, one of the very important things is to be able to see people, because you can't be talking blank to a blank screen and not having anybody to look at. I'll tell you why. Very few people are able to effectively deliver content without having people in front of them, because you can be talking boring, you can be very very off the topic and off things, and people may not be able to connect at all. So this becomes like a big problem. Effectiveness goes away from here, which is what I realize now, having dealt with so many people across platforms, through Junior Holics, through Cello, through National Stock Exchange, through Dell RM, through various topics also that I've spoken of. uh, Sometimes as a keynote speaker, sometimes as a trainer, and sometimes technology not supporting me, so I had to take care of other things. So now I've got that confidence that when I'm speaking to people, I don't need to see people and yet be able to connect and know what people would be looking out for. So that takes time, but that takes a lot of diverse experiences, which is what I said, that if you play around with things, if you get yourself immersed in things, and understand how things are going to work, it's going to pay off in the longer run, because your effectiveness will increase front end and back end effectiveness will show and reflect in the front end of virtual communication. Now here I'll cover one of the questions that Namrita Harish has asked. Hi, is virtual communication the means of the future? Very good question, Namrita. The reason I feel it's a very good question is because I have been into virtual communication for the last 6 7 years. I think I've been like very actively learning virtually, and at times working virtually. So it's been like an on and off of working and learning part. But because I've been using a lot of virtual platforms, I've developed that confidence to kind of not get worried if something doesn't work. I know I'll find a way to kind of work around it, find another way, or do something or the other with it. So now when I speak now, and when I say that it's the need of the now, we need it now, then I'm speaking of three or four things. I'm speaking of climate change. So yes, I do feel that virtual communication is going to be a very very big thing in the future, and my reasons are these. First is the climate change. Just now, something like a COVID has given us an idea of suddenly cutting things off, putting people in their homes and kind of restrictions all around. That has given us an idea that supposing something this happens, like people are kind of shut and they're not interacting so much because the environment outside and the physical closeness of people is like a threat. I consider this like a kind of a preparation that we're going through to be able to see the future. See, I'm not being pessimistic, but I'm also the person who would believe as a leader to be equipped enough for the future, so that we don't mess up things for people and for the country and for the world at large. So when I say climate change, I'm saying that supposing things happen, that because of climate change physical restrictions come in on and off, or something or the other happens, so things will shut down all of a sudden. These things can happen, so we have to be ready for that. So yes, virtual communication becomes the need of the hour even then, and people have to be ready for their systems to take on digital operations and digital mode of delivery and execution, rather than completely depending on the physical aspect of it. The second thing is, when I say that virtual communication is the future, is the working mothers. I think, at Jobs for Her, we do encourage people to kind of restart their career, to start from scratch, or to upskill themselves. So when we speak of this, we are looking at mothers getting more and more busier, and therefore, maybe, they're having to juggle things, or they are, kind of uh, getting more busier because working parents and children being at home. So maybe it could be parents working from home, or it could be parents physically going out for work. So if there are systems that can manage a lot of things for them, for example, Google calendars syncing, and ensuring that your checklist is in front of you, notes ever, that ever there are many other tools which are there, everyday tools, which kind of helps us to kind of keep our notes, have the bookmarks ready, make notes on the websites that we are accessing, all of that. Or having community and groups and all, like Slack, which is there, and there are so many others which ensure that you're staying in touch with people, at the same time taking care of your own balancing of the personal and the professional life, and ensuring that you're not missing out on either one. So the juggling gets better when your virtual communication skills, and that things can be managed from the virtual side also, if you don't have to if you don't have all the time to kind of virtually physically go and indulge in things. Now the next thing which I'm talking about is more busier, multi talented and dynamic professionals. So there was a time and age when people believed in sticking to one job and doing that alone. Today even entrepreneurs have become more and more dynamic and open minded and risk taking, and they want to explore two three things. So if they have a good established business, they go for two three other side businesses, which ensures that either they're doing the impact side of things, and it's become like a for profit supporting a non-profit thing, or it's like a hybrid model. So there are various ways to look at this. So now when people are getting multi dynamic, and they're getting multitasking, and multi talented individuals are doing multiple things, then it's becoming easier if they're able to automate things, or put it up on and communicate digitally. Plus a person like me, when I think of myself only, I can tell you I feel so excited because of being digitally equipped, and not being handicapped, and being resourceful. I am able to work with mentoring positions across the country. I'm working with groups in Canada, I'm working with groups in USA, I'm working with groups in UK, in Germany. So what's happening is I'm able to multitask and work across the globe, get experiences, contribute. At the same time, sitting in Kolkata, I'm able to communicate, do work in Mumbai, in Delhi, in Noida, in Kerala, in Calicut, in Chennai, in Bangalore, Hyderabad, so many cities, I'm able to access sitting at home, and being able to kind of connect with people, influence lives, impact people in a bigger way, because I'm able to kind of digitally manage things. And also different talents of mine, different models of mine are kind of undergoing change when I'm kind of adapting to the technology and executing it through the digital platforms. So the more busier I'm getting, with more platforms, more domains, more work digitally, and digitally it's helping me to kind of balance out things and not get overwhelmed, that okay, I have to do everything manually, and I have to do everything like this. No, things can be taken care. I get a Google invite from something, I don't have to chase people to give me the links. All of that is taken care of. Groups are managing their things in the groups itself. So all that is taken care of. Now technology becoming important, a very important part of this is gone are the days when we could say that we don't really need let's say if we are looking at let's say technology being the need of the future. So every company has to be technologically advanced. Everybody has to take on technology is the future. So today, even when we are speaking of children, and we say, oh no, I am afraid of the screen time, I do not want to give screen time to my children so much, I think they can do without it, and all of that. I think it's a very bad idea, because you're depriving children of that whole the whole experience of adapting to the digital world. Because understand this, today if as a parent, or as someone who's working with children, if you feel I'm not going to give children the screen time, it's not going to work, because they're going to be ending up with workforces which are going to push them and actually assess them and reject them for not being technically sound and strong. So you have to be very very sure of what you're depriving your children of. You have to devise systems and manage schedules at the back end, so that they're not getting too much of screen time. At the same time, they are able to learn effectively. As the person who's delivering to people and different people, everybody can get exhausted. It's not just children when it comes to technology overdose, or the consumption. So I think here also, it's about, what are the types of activities you do. Share your concerns, that if you're going to be, continuously doing something, let the person know that you're going to be engaged in this throughout. So, having various ways to communicate virtually, even so that it doesn't become, constantly looking at the screen, sometimes typing, sometimes looking up, sometimes drawing something or doing in your copy and then going back. So what I'm trying to say is, eye movements, formats changing, so it kind of takes away the stress from the eyes and focuses on various other things. Now, so this is what I said about, the virtual communication part. Let me answer one more question. What are some of the basics that you should keep in mind while attending a virtual interview? Kritika, you can look up the previous expert chat that I did, and what exactly I meant there. So I'll just quickly cover the basics of interview. Is like, when you're attending an interview, it's very important to kind of keep one thing in mind, that, the background that you have, your network connection, and having some understanding of what that particular company is going to be looking for in that particular role, and what is their work in, and what's their feedback, given by other people who worked there. So these are a few of the things, and more details you can find in the previous expert chat that I have. Now, Kaveri Nair says, due to the absence of interpersonal communication in the current situation, how to work on virtual communication? I love that question, Kaveri. Thank you for asking me. So, when we speak of interpersonal communication, I think this is really, really important as a word, because somewhere, we feel that when we go into virtual communication, we are going to miss out on the person, that interpersonal experience. When we speak of a physical communication, we're speaking of, seeing a person's eyes, seeing, how their cheeks will, behave, or, how their lips twitch, and, kind of, are they sarcastic, are they seriously telling you this? So a lot of things, the smirk on the face, all of this is not easy to decipher. So I totally get it when you say that, interpersonal communication is missing. So here, what I would encourage is, Kaveri, to go and join some networks online, which will encourage you to chat, which will encourage you to speak, which will encourage you to understand people. Another way to look at it is, and this is again something that I said in my previous expert chat, where you could be looking at, interacting with your own family members with a video chat in different places with different age groups. The more of that you do, you'll realize how to communicate and how to effectively communicate, and, play games with your children, or your children's group, or your friends group, or something or the other. So what happens is, when you're doing that, bit of experimentation and hands on, it gets easier to kind of uh, get better at the interpersonal skills. Also, you have to imagine a lot, because here, as I said, I'm someone who's worked across the different groups, different topics. So for me, it's not a tough thing to be able to talk now and to connect, and still, assume that, there are people sitting in front of me and I'm talking to them, and I need to connect with them, and therefore speak accordingly, or speak, with my own body language in such a way. So this takes time. With experience it comes, but then, I would still encourage you to go for channels, go for plus acumen is one platform where the people get to do courses together, and they see each other virtually, they kind of connect with each other. There are many more, of course, Coursera and others, which will encourage you to kind of go for platforms where you can interact with people, learn with people, work with people, network with people, because that'll give you the real experience of actually knowing how human emotions, feelings, understanding, empathy, all that, how will it work. And trust me, there's going to be a whole new psychology that will pop up, in the world now, of how virtual human psychology is going to differ from the typical psychology that we're looking at. Because, these are new fields that'll come up for research, for development, for businesses, for a lot of other people, because, the psychology of the human interaction in physical space is so much different from what it's going to be in the digital virtual world. So there is going to be more research, and I'm one of those people who is researching on that how does the psychology vary, from this communication to that. So the next question is by Nikita: how to judge the psyche and the space of mind of your colleague while communicating with them virtually? Wonderful question, Nikita. So when we say that, the psyche and space of the mind, now what you need to understand is a few things. I think another question overlaps here, so I will just take up that question here and kind of merge it. So the question here was that, is there any particular format for virtual communication? So this is connected. Let me connect the two and share it with you. So when Nikita says judging the psyche and the space of the of the mind of another person while communicating with them, and the format of communication, I think one of the very important things to understand here is this, that the face, so preparation plays a role. When a person is not prepared, that person is going to be like, oh really, oh I need to do this, the person is going to be all the time either too excited or too, kind of confused. Oh, where do I go? Oh, like, people will give you a lot of hints of their lack of preparation. So one very important thing for the virtual communication is both sides to be kind of prepared. That ensures an effective communication. But again, having said that, there will be times for, as a leader, where you'll have to step up your game and be better prepared than the others. So you'll have to know how to kind of, when you see that people are getting too lost, too confused, say it's okay, we can, let's do this instead, it'll be more fun. So have a way of switching over things rather than making people feel that they can't do something. So that's one of the things. Preparation is very, very integral. Second is to kind of understand the space of mind of people, is to understand, the kind of questions. So, either the kind of questions that you ask or the kind of questions that the other person asks, that determines, how good your understanding of things is, and that can take care of a lot of things. So let's say, you have a topic which is planned, an agenda for the day. Have that person, look up things, share some resources, ask the person to make notes of something, maybe share it ahead of time, so that, you are all on the same page and everybody is having lots to kind of keep ready. If you leave things for the last minute, and I'm telling you this because virtual communication, a lot of times I've seen people not being prepared, because, they'll be like, oh, I'll manage last minute, or digital is going to be too tough, I'm not going to be talking so much, I'll rather be a listener and let everybody else talk, and if I kind of understand, then I'll take it up at that very moment. So what I'm trying to say is that, it's important to a little, like, you'll have to coax people at times, literally, to kind of get them to do the work. But if you do that, it pays off, because then the effectiveness is much, much better. So that's the back end and the front end being taken care. Now, I'll go to the next question. What are some of the best virtual communication practices that my team and I can do as a team building activity? Kajal Sinha, I'll be answering this question in the next major chunk of talk that I'll be doing on the fields related to, virtual communication, that mostly, works well with the women and the work that they do, the majority of the women I'm speaking of. So I'll cover that then. When we speak of Rupa, are there any courses or trainings on virtual communication? I'm not very sure, Rupa, because not many people are even ready themselves to be able to deliver such a thing. A lot of people say that yes, they are adapting and they're ready and they'll be doing it. It's not easy though. And I'm telling you this because I've had, various experiences myself, and I'm still struggling at times to be able to effectively do something. I pull it off in the end, but I know it's not easy and it's a challenge. So yes, I'm sure, maybe at Jobs for Her, you'll be having access to some of the things that we could be offering together, and, we'll be helping you out. So one of the things I would encourage all of you who are watching today is to be able to come up with questions and maybe exact requirements of the kind of learnings and courses that you could be, looking at, which could help you to get better equipped at your work, at your personal, professional life. Do reach out to us, in this particular group, Women in Tech. Post, the requirements. So in this particular expert chat which is going on, you can comment there and tell us, what exactly are the kind of courses that you're looking at, what are the exact type of learnings that you're looking at, maybe specific topics, maybe specific domains, and we will be ready, and I'll personally look into this, and I'll love to collaborate and help you out, because at Jobs for Her, we do believe that, we're there for you and understanding your needs better. So you must tell us, what is exactly, maybe, what you're asking us here, that, what are the basic communication practices. Maybe we could do a virtual communication practice course. Or when you're saying, trainings in virtual communication, we could take up, whichever domain you're part of, and we could design a training around it. But come up with it, tell us what your learning requirements are, because unless it comes from you, we do not know how to serve you better, right? So Harsha Desai says, as a technologically challenged person, how can I learn to manage virtual communication on the basic levels? Harsha, one of the very important things to understand here is to go with some very basic kind of tools and resources. And basic types of tools and resources for apps would be Zoom. Zoom is very easy to use, more than Hangouts, more than other things, because at times you don't need an ID password. You just need an ID password. You may not require a link, or you can just do with the link and you have the password. So what I'm trying to say is go with basics of apps being Zoom, like let's say. Then, of course, ensuring that safety and all that measures being taken care. Second could be, look up the Google tools which are there. Google is a very, very common and a very often widely used, globally used forum. And the more comfortable you get playing around with it, have an account, take someone's help, and just play around with it. There's no damage done if you kind of just look around, as long as you don't, kind of share it with random people. But you kind of see how groups work, how Google Docs works, how slides work. Explore different options, make mistakes. Who's going to bother? Nobody's going to bother. And don't do it with a primary account that you're using or somebody's using. Do it with a new account that you make just for testing and playing around with it and to get the feel of it. Priya Rodriguez, how should I prepare for virtual communication with my team members? I'll come to that, Priya. As I said for Kajal as well, that I would be looking at certain domains and fields and then talking of it. And Amita Sen, how can I make myself a better virtual communicator? I just shared that with you all. Please have a look at all that. Now, let me quickly go into the domains as I promised. So one of the domains that is primarily dominated and females are mostly found in is HR. Technology and HR, technology and content, technology and marketing, social media, technology and team building and collaboration and trainings. So when we say these particular fields in virtual communication, so let me go one by one. When we speak of HR, that is human resources, and we speak of recruitment, and we speak of talent management, that can also cover a part of the team activities and trainings, if that is we're talking of that. Then one of the things I would encourage you to really look up is the kind of the size of the people and the number of people who are going to be part of your trainings. Because if you have too many complicated technologies and you have a large group of people, you'll go crazy handling the technology and figuring things out for people. So go for something simpler, which works for people. At the same time, you're able to bring in tools to collaborate, to kind of not go very, very high on technology, but simpler things. Now, when we speak of recruitment, very important thing to look at here when we speak of virtual communication, you could look at my first expert chat again, just before the one before this that I had, how to ace a virtual interview. You can look at that also. So I covered the perspective of the person interviewing as well as the person being interviewed. So these are a few things to look at. Now, when I speak of HR, I'm also speaking of the database, So let's say, you have a huge database of people that you're going to interview, and then you have certain forms. What I would encourage you to do is have someone at the back end, so back end meaning, that person is not visible, and you have another account which is, they're monitoring from, and that person is filling up the answers for each of them, or there's a technology which is more advanced and you know how to use it. Then have that person, record the whole thing, or the sound system fills up the data. That's very rare and difficult, so I would not tell you to go for it, and it could prove to be a very expensive move in this initial phase, and to even kind of know the technology so soon yourself. So I would encourage you to go slow, have someone, have another member of the team, operating at the back end, and also observing, listening, and making notes, and having things filled up, so that there's another third perspective as well as a recording, so that when you're sitting together and analyzing this particular person who's going to be working and a potential for your company, you could be having a real video feedback of what's happening, and a person making notes gives you a third perspective. How does the virtual communication is taken into consideration, and how it's observed, and what perspectives are derived and insights are derived, and then what notes have people made, what has their observation been as a third party and not yours. So then it becomes a great way to analyze human psychology in virtual communication and virtual interactions. So that's one way to look at the HR part. Also following up, what kind of emails you send in the beginning, later, and then are you sending them more links, and then are they able to access it, have they checked out those links, ask them a few questions. Because a lot of times, people who are coming to getting interviewed, they may not know if there was an attachment or there was a link which was not opening. If supposing there was a problem at your end where you didn't have the hyperlink placed correctly, then it could be, the other person should be able to point that out, and not say that, oh, I didn't, this, making up excuses and talking something else. So if there's a hyperlink problem, you would know that this candidate has checked it out, or has been sincere, or has pointed out, or even during the meeting said there was no hyperlink, but I just copy pasted and I kind of went to this link and checked it out. Also, when we speak of attachments, a lot of times if attachments are not easy to download, they don't have the format, or there's something wrong, they should be able to come and tell you that. That shows that you have a very sincere candidate in front of you. So these are a few things to look at when we speak of the HR part. When we speak of the content part, let me tell you a little bit about that. So a lot of times, when we speak of content, when we speak of content individually, so let's say you're someone who's written a good article of so many words and you're sending it for a blog or an article or something or the other, then it's very important that you are not sending them that particular link of that particular file, because that, in case it gets edited or something goes wrong, then it's going to be a problem. Also, formatting can change. So what's important is save as, change the file format from the Google Docs to a PDF, so that it's showing up properly and you're able to send that as an attachment, rather than like a proper working document that you have. Also, when we speak of content, now if this is individually that I said, now supposing you're looking at a group collaboration of people from different places and different parts are going to be collaborating and giving in content, it's very, very important that you do not you know that these people have had an experience. So send them a rough template of this, let them all create a copy and practice it in their own space, or have a quick activity where you tell them to send something ahead of time by editing that particular document. So let's say you have a huge 5 question document which they're all going to fill up and have as a group activity together. Here you tell them that no, you all have to answer question 1 and send it to me, making a copy of it, so you'll know if they're, and keep this locked so that they can only have the view option and not the edit option. And then when they send it across to you, you know who stood where, what was their formatting trouble or whatever other challenges they had, and therefore you'd know to give them feedback beforehand or to give them on spot when they're interacting. Now, last few things about the marketing part and social media part, very important. When you're doing virtual communication, trust me, the more that these people say that okay, push it and use the social media marketing tools and analytics, trust me, you might feel you've got a lot of viewers and a lot of people liking and commenting and all. It's not necessary it's going to get you business or it's going to get you the impact that you want. People, these are all tools that may work, may not work. If you really are focusing on impact or focus on quality through technology, quality and focused content, it's not about focused being in one domain. It's about actually making your intention clear to the public of what is it that they would be expecting from you or what you're going to be giving them. Because the more transparency that exists, the more natural you are, and the lesser the all the show off in the background and all the things around, it's going to connect better with people and they're going to come back to you for business and for impact and for relationships. So those are very important things to look at. Now, the last part, when we speak of team activities, one very important thing again to consider is the tools that you're going to use. What is your reason for using that particular digital tool? How many people are you going to cater to? What kind of activities have you been doing? So if you're let's say a trainer, a corporate trainer or some other trainer, typically you had a particular presentation that you would be running or making people do something in physical space. You need to sit down and understand that, are you just going to switch over and somehow figure out a digital activity which is somewhat similar? Is it going to be about the activity being similar, or the outcome that you want to achieve to be similar? That's going to be a very important thing to look at when we speak of virtual communication. So you need to figure out both the things. You need to figure out that there needs to be, and it's not necessary that the delivery has to be the same and people having the same experience. That's not going to happen either way. So you have to be sure that whatever the outcome that you want to achieve through virtual through the activity in physical space, that outcome has to be again achieved through digital space. It might undergo a huge change, but that's for you to figure out, and you have to know your stuff well to be able to do that, rather than just saying I'll be executing through technology. Now, my last thing is here, I would just like to conclude on some things, that as I said, the front end and the back end. The front end is what the other people see, back end is what you are doing at the back end, and ensuring the structure, the content, the flexibility. Very important, the word flexibility, because digital environment requires you to be highly flexible yet having structures. That does not necessarily apply to the physical space, because physical space, something goes wrong, you can say, hey, you know what, this happened, and then you can make the whole physical environment different. Here you can't be doing that. You can't be moving people around, you can't be changing rooms, and you can't be doing so many other things. You'll have to be in this structure of physical space and this time and all the constraints and all the things that you're supposed to do. But you have to be flexible in how you deliberate, how much to give, how much to cut down. If technologically there was a glitch and everybody has only the 1 hour timing, and let's say for some reason 30 minutes goes into figuring out technology and things going wrong, and then 30 minutes is what you have. You as a leader have to know your stuff really well. People have to know their stuff well. So the gist of this entire expert chat is this, that when it comes to the front end and the back end of virtual communication, effectiveness is only possible when you know your matter well. And when I say matter well, it means you've done your research properly, you have your ground understanding of things. Thirdly, interpersonal skills, to be able to, analyze things and understand things, what is it that's working, what is it that's not working. You have to go back maybe into your physical things that you've done and sorting things out and making notes. How did that work? And then, kind of taking juice and, an insight from that and trying to apply. A lot of it initially will be trial and error, but never mind, you will learn if you are putting thought behind it. So front end means, whatever experience you give to people in virtual communication has a lot of impact. It is no longer about, oh, I got a certificate and it's done. People can actually, if they don't like the experience, put themselves on mute, put off the video, and or say that internet didn't work, so they're out of the system and they're out of the meetings. So that's very important to understand. Here it's no longer going to work that, physically you've turned up, so you just have to somehow tolerate people and you're going to do it. Here people are just not going to bother. They're going to give you hundreds of excuses, and you're going to, if the user experience is bad, they're not going to come back. And you can't force people, because it's no longer about physical attendance. They can make the physical presence known, through being there in the side, but they're not listening, they're not paying attention, and they can easily give the excuse then they could not hear you. So these are things, so quality plays a very, very important role. And the quality, the front end, better interface, user experience, the client design, whatever you call it, the front end will be powerful and strong if the back end is taken care of. Your content, what did you plan, what were your the planning, something goes wrong, how are you going to kind of cover up things, and how are you going to make things work somehow, and also ensure that the effectiveness is still there. That will show, how sound your foundation is, what is the hard work you've put. And you just can't turn up for a meeting saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to be ready. Even for this expert chat, let me give you an example. Like, when I get the questions from you all, I actually sit down and process, what are the questions. So I don't go into answering each question and repeating things. I get to the questions, I figure things out. The front end experience, the content that I talk, I feel happy sharing that, because I know it's come from a lot of back end work that I've done. So I figure out all the questions, I put my thoughts together. There's the paper here which you can see. So I've put all the notes below and had a kind of concrete understanding of what are the major things that I need to be talking, what are the things that people are asking that's between the lines and not necessarily expressed. So that is again, form of virtual communication, which means you need to do some back end work to be able to have a good experience in the front end, and for people to have a great experience and enjoy the whole the website that you build or whatever it is. So it was just like a technology example that I took and connected it with another domain. So thank you so much for watching. It was fun answering your questions. It was a great learning to see, what all you all are coming up with. And yes, as I said, I look forward to all of you telling us in the groups what is it that your learning requirement is when it comes to virtual communication in technology. Do let us know, and we will make it a point that we come up with nice packaging of the courses that we offer you for free, so that you are able to kind of take back something and enjoy, and at the same time make the most of this COVID break that we all have. Thank you so much.